the threats in this message by Trump, one for increased sanctions, particularly banking sanctions. I don't know that there are any banking sanctions left we can apply to Russia that we haven't put on in the last 3 years. Trump also threatens tariffs. Of course, we have almost no trade with Russia, so that won't have any impact either.
Donald Trump says he's considering sanctions on Russian banking as he continues his interventions in the Ukraine-Russia war. Meanwhile, President Zelensky's trip to Saudi Arabia to meet Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Monday has been confirmed ahead of fresh talks between the US and Ukraine the following day. Well, let's cross now to Ambassador John Bolton, Donald Trump's former national security advisor, who's on the line now. Good afternoon, Ambassador.
Good afternoon. Glad to be with you.
Thanks very much for coming on the programme. Let's start with this post that Donald Trump has made on new sanctions that he's apparently considering on Russia. A week after the Oval Office showdown, around this time last week, is he changing tack or is he just putting pressure ahead of a peace deal?
No, I think he's just covering his bases. Certainly, the debacle in the Oval Office last Friday is hard to beat. So this is just a random message basically saying to the Russians, I want you to sit down to negotiate. And Putin has already responded saying basically he'd be happy to sit down and negotiate. And I might just say the threats in this message by Trump, one for increased sanctions, particularly banking sanctions. I don't know that there are any banking sanctions left we can apply to Russia that we haven't put on in the last 3 years. Trump also threatens tariffs. Of course, we have almost no trade with Russia, so that won't have any impact either.
So it's an empty threat, it's posturing. But is there something interesting in that posturing? The fact that he feels the need to say it, is there a scintilla of sort of recognition about what he's done in the last week and perhaps needs to sort of pull back a little bit?
No, look, this is largely about Donald Trump getting the Nobel Peace Prize. You know, he's had it in mind that Barack Obama received it in 2009, hadn't done anything since he hadn't been in office long enough to do anything, particularly given the timing of the decision to award the prize was well before the public ceremony. Obama didn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. But that doesn't stop Trump from thinking, well, if Obama got it, surely I should get it. So bringing peace to the war in Ukraine, I think he thinks is his ticket. He said in his State of the Union message on Tuesday that the war was senseless. Ukrainians have a somewhat different view. They happen to think they're fighting for their freedom and independence. Those are words that usually resonate with Americans, apparently not with Donald Trump.
And, you know, he's not a man known for self-doubt, but is there an issue potentially that Republican dissent over, for example, Elon Musk's cuts in Doge is starting to resonate a little bit there?
Well, a lot of us are doing more than hoping that Republican dissent is starting to resonate. I do think the tariff issue, the effort on Ukraine that Trump has been pursuing, the real threat to the legitimacy and continuity of NATO that's at stake, are all completely contrary to core conservative Republican principles. So yes, I think there is some sign of life, of opposition to this within the Republican Party, but unfortunately I have to concede there's still a long way to go.
Have you got any hopes for the talks next week, the US-Ukraine talks? You know, can you begin to hope that Ukraine is being considered in a more civilized way than a week ago?
Well, hope springs eternal, but it's not a strategy. The Trump administration has already given away two key positions. Number one, that Ukraine will not be returned to its full sovereignty and territorial integrity, which up until a couple of weeks ago was the U.S. position and the NATO position. He said that there won't be any chance of Ukraine joining NATO. There won't be any NATO security guarantees. There won't be any U.S. security guarantees. Look, some of this may have been the outcome of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, but what Trump has done is concede them all right at the front end. It puts Ukraine in a very difficult position. I'm not sure what good news they're going to hear in Saudi Arabia at this meeting.
And you mentioned NATO a minute ago and what the signals that Donald Trump's been sending over NATO. Do you agree with the Ukrainian ambassador that the US is, and I quote, destroying the world order?
I don't think there is a world order. I don't think there's ever been one. I think there's been stability and security such as it is provided by the power of the United States and its alliances. And if we go about destroying the alliances, that just makes it more difficult to have any kind of order at all. And that's why I think it's especially important as Europe considers what to do in Ukraine, facing these 180-degree reversals of policy by Trump, that they not conclude that the answer is to have the European Union assume the functions of NATO, or even look like they're moving in that direction, because that will give Donald Trump a permission slip actually to formally withdraw from NATO. It's very dangerous territory. Some of these EU members have been announcing.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you very much for joining us. Well, that was Donald Trump speaking in the Oval Office about all sorts of things. Started off on tariffs and then got on to Russia. He was asked if Vladimir Putin, if he believed that Vladimir Putin wanted peace. He said he still believed he did, and then went on to say that he was finding it very difficult to deal with Ukraine. He repeated his line from a week ago that they don't have the cards. He said it was easier dealing with Russia, and he was asked about whether Ukraine was suffering from this pause in US intelligence aid. He said that he thought Putin was doing what anyone else would do. He wants to get the war ended, he said. Well, let's get some reaction now from Hannah Hopko, who's former chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Ukrainian Parliament. Good afternoon, Hannah.
Good afternoon from Kyiv.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. I wondered what you made of what you just heard from Donald Trump there. I just summarised it in case you didn't.
So, actually, it is very disappointing that Trump, instead of demonstrating strength of America, he followed the trap from Russian side, because Putin doesn't want peace, and daily terror, massive attacks, cruise ballistic missiles, kamikaze drones that Russia is using against Ukrainian civilians, critical energy infrastructure. This is a sign that Putin wants to win the war, not to achieve peace. And I remember from 2014 till 2022, when our Western partners were naive, believing that peaceful settlement is possible with Russia. Remember, during Trump's first time, when Russia violated Minsk II agreement, there were no ceasefire. So actually now, when I hear about ceasefire, so I want to ask a question to Trump. Why Russia never delivered as a pre-negotiation stage, like exchange of political prisoners, returning back Ukrainian kids? Where is the evidences that Putin really want to deliver?
Well, he claims that Putin does want peace. He also was asked about this pause in military assistance. Why not provide Ukraine with air defences? He was asked by one of the journalists. He said, I have to know they want to settle. And he started complaining about how much America had spent. What's your response on that?
So first of all, we are thankful to American people for helping Ukraine. But actually, if you see the numbers, so Trump is saying not correct one. So, and increasing 5 times more. And this is how our European friends should learn how Trump behaves with partners. Second, Ukrainians proved that we are very efficiently using support and military assistance. And during 3 years of the genocidal period of Russian full-scale war, we managed to produce, to increase our and manufacture more weapons. 30% of the weapons that Ukrainian defense forces are using is made in Ukraine. And actually, Ukraine is an asset for NATO and our Western partners, because we have unique combat experience using drones, producing drones, electronic warfare, and we proved that not having a navy, we managed to demilitarize Russian navy presence in the Black Sea. So I think if we are talking about US leadership, credibility, so America should partner with strong countries like Ukraine, but not to help Russia in their genocidal wars by cutting off intelligence to Ukraine and stopping supplying of weapons to Ukrainian armed forces.
Just briefly, when you hear what you have just done from Donald Trump, does it give you much hope for the peace talks, which President Zelensky is going to attend next week?
Honestly, instead of thinking how to defeat Russia and punish for their war crimes, we are talking how to appease the evil, and America plays the role as a mediator. Of course, in this case, Putin will consider US as a weak partner and will seize this opportunity to rearm, regroup, and use so-called peace settlement just to fix problems with weak economy, because Russian economy is really facing many problems. There are some conflicts and tensions inside Russia. So Putin play smart game. But my question is, what America will benefit? America is now losing credibility. I just returned from Taiwan, so people are very disappointed. I participated in Munich Security Conference. So America is losing its strategic partnership because of behavior of Trump.
Hannah Hopko, thank you very much for that reaction to what we've just heard from the Oval Office from Donald Trump, former chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Ukrainian Parliament there.